Hey guys, this is Mike again, and we're going to do a building tips video on the Keecat and the Keecat 2, two nice planes by RichModel. I've got so many requests on my email and on my YouTube page about where's the CG point, where do I put the batteries, how do I do the retract. So I'm going to try to do a video that's going to cover all those points. As you see here on this side, we have the original Keecat with the dual boom tail, and later on they came out with the Keecat 2 that has that high T-tail. They both have their own flying characteristics. They both fly and they both like to go fast. Now these two are not fast. These are set up on 60 size electric motors on 6 cells. Fast enough right now for me. They go between 80 and 90 miles an hour. The good thing about these are both are set up differently. One has a Power 60 by Eflite, the other one has a G60 by Turnigy. One has the serverless retracts by Hobby King, the other one has the retracts that come originally with the kit. So we're going to go through all those different setups and where the CG points are. I know you guys one of the number one questions I have are, where are the CG points? And we're going to go on both these models, how the motors are mounted, and where the CG points are on both. Okay guys, this portion is going to be on the engine mounting on these two planes. As you see that this is the Keecat 2, and this has the Power 60 E-Flite. You can see the standoffs I have on there. They are 3/8 inch standoffs. And this is where one of the big problems a lot of you guys are having. This firewall is set at the incorrect thrust angle. If you just mount straight to the firewall, you're good. This plane's going to want to nose up on you constantly. And some guys think it's the CG point. It's not the CG point, it's the thrust angle. So as you can see in this one, and I'm going to try to get as close as I can here, I washered this motor up to bring it in line with what we feel was the correct CG. Okay, it's washered up 140 thousandths of an inch at the top as opposed to the bottom, so that I gave it a little down thrust. That down thrust really changed the whole way this plane flies. The first time I flew it, it wanted to just go up, 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 and thinking all the time, I was thinking that it was tail heavy, tail heavy, tail heavy. I talked to a good friend of mine who has built these planes, and he said that all these planes, one of the inherent issues with them is the thrust angle. And so on this plane, I gave it 140 thousandths of an inch down thrust, and on the Keecat 2, which I'm going to try to get a shot of it over here. You can see that motor right there. See if I can get that focus in for you. There it is. That's the G60, and that has 2 washers, which come out to be 80. I believe it's 80 thousandths difference, a little bit of down thrust, and it's worked out fine on both these. And the CG point is about right where the factory says, or close to it, and we'll go over the CG points. Very important. These two are using they're both using 2-bladed 12 by 12 standard props. I didn't use pushers because you just don't have the choice you want in pushers. So and this works fine. You know, you just make sure the motor's turning the correct way, and that and they both fly pretty decently. I mean, these planes are made to go much faster than I have them going. This is the way they're styled. Okay, so that covers the motor mounts and the down thrust. Okay, let's look at the difference between these two planes so we can kind of see the difference in style. On the Keecat 2, the fuse is a little shorter, not quite as streamlined. If you see it on the Keecat 1, it's much more streamlined, or not much more, but there's some more streamline to it. It has the winglets on it, and you really need those because this plane can be what I call waggy up in the air. It does have that high rudder and that high T-tail, and surprisingly enough, it's not really that elevator sensitive like I thought it was going to be. So I set it at the throws given to you inside the manual. But the wingtips, the wingtip verticals help this, I think, this plane become less waggy, I'll call it. So you can see the difference. It's a little stubbier. The moment's a little shorter, but not much, and it's a nice plane. And so is the Keecat 2. You see it's a little more streamlined. It's much, now this plane flies like it's on rails. With those dual rudders set up, I mean, it loves, the faster you go, the better. I'm sorry I can't go fast enough for this plane. I think I've had it about 90 miles an hour and it still wants to, it just wants to scream, and it doesn't want to climb, it doesn't have any bad tendencies, it wants to fly. So that's what these planes are all about. Okay, so now let's go to the retract section here and let's see if we can, I'll show you the difference between the two planes. Okay, retract section. As you see, this is the Keecat, the original, and I use the serverless retracts. I like the double wheel in front for it just helps it in steering. Very minimal modifications had to make here. You can see I had to cut out here for a steering rod. This was my first plane that I've done that. I've learned since then. There's probably other ways to do it. And you can see how nicely they fit into the wings. While I'm here, let's talk about the ESC mounting. You can see my 80 amp Eflite mounted with fins out. It's a very easy mount. It gets plenty of air. I never have any kind of heating problems no matter how hard I push this. It's a very, very clean setup. Okay? And here is the CG line, in which we'll have a section on the CG in a few seconds here. So there you have the retracts. And we're going to go over to the Keecat 2 using the standard retracts. You know, I tell you what, I have nothing to say on either of them. I'll use them both, I guess. The air retract guys will tell you the air is the only way to go, but I had no issues with these really. You have to use strong metal geared servos. I don't mess around with any weak servos. I get the strongest ones I can when it comes to retract operation. So here, it pretty much fits pretty well into the model here. This is a little bit of air intake I do there to cool, get some air flowing through there, add a little bit. Once again, basically they fit the same way in the wing and the back. You'll see my ESC mount there. Fins out. This one is using the Turnigy setup with the, I believe that's 100 amp Deluxe ESC. No issues yet. Now, I did burn out my very first G60. I didn't burn it out. The magnets came loose. And I'm sure anybody who's paying attention knows that that's been a big issue with those. We did find appropriate epoxy to fix it. This is not the original. This is a new one. But it's an actual epoxy that you bake in the oven when you put the magnets back in. It seems to work good. We've had success with it now. It's made by Loctite. So anyway, this is the Keecat 2 with the retracts. Everything looks good. Also, here's my CG dots, which you probably can't see in this video, but I'll go through that again. I know that everybody, that's one of the most important points on these planes. Tail heavy is usually death on these. Okay, that's the retract section. Okay, let's quickly go through the CG. This is the one everybody's been waiting for. Everybody wants to see. Why? I don't know why RichModel, I don't know how they do it, how they do their setup, or what they do. But this is the electric setup, and it's not going to change where the CG is in the plane. The plane flies, the CG needs to be correct. Okay, we're going to go from the back of the firewall to the CG point. This is the Keecat, the original, 6 inches. Back of the firewall to the CG is 6 inches. Okay, no questions there. I'll show you the inside how I have it set up to help get that CG. Let's go over to the Keecat 2. The Keecat 2 with the big tall rudder and the T-tail. CG's different spot. CG from the back of the firewall to the CG point, 8 3/4 inches. I hope you guys get your pencils out. 8 3/4 inches from here to here. That will help this plane fly and fly nicely. Okay, CG done. Let's go on to the next thing. Okay guys, I have taken the canopies off. I want to show you a quick inside. Everybody has their own way to do things. I have found on this one, this is a pretty good setup. You can see there's a lot of room in there. It's my receiver and the satellite on the side and my, oh yes, capacitor. We'll talk about that. Here's where I mount the battery in the back. And I'll see if I can put that in there as I'm using. It's a 6S5000. Fits in plenty of room. I got my straps in there. Fits in right there. Okay, and that's where the battery goes on both Keecats, right in the back, against that back firewall. Perfect. CG comes out perfect. That's using a 6S5000. I'm wondering if there's anything else I can answer. Oh, the capacitor. Let's quickly talk about capacitors as I scope over to this other plane. An old timer told me one time, I have serverless retracts on one of my planes, a lot of my planes actually, and I'll tell you what, they're great, but I hate them. They fail too many times. And you know, what's the issue with serverless retracts? Why do they fail? We all scratch our heads. You know, sometimes they come out, sometimes they don't. Well, talking to a tech at Hobby King, and it was an old time tech. It was a guy that they employ in the United States that's been flying for a long time. He told me about capacitors. He said one of the problems with the serverless retracts, and you'll see that capacitor right there, is that if you initialize them and they don't get the full 5.5 into them or whatever, one will fail, one will not cycle, or two will not cycle. Then you have to recycle them all over again. And if you don't get that pop to those, that initial 5.5 to those serverless retracts, they will fail. So, what does a capacitor do? The capacitor, which plugs into an empty pocket in your receiver, as you see I have here, it acts like a battery. And what it does is, while you're running this, your plane, it's always at capacity. It'll charge itself. And if there's a slight drop in voltage in this receiver, it lets go and pops that and keeps it up where it belongs. I'm not an electrician. That's kind of the layman's version, but that's how a capacitor works. Capacitors are not complicated. What that does, it makes sure that when you initiate your serverless retracts, bang, they get it all. And it also helps with your regular servos in case you have any issues and you got some heavy-duty servos that need every bit of 5.5 or 6 volts. And you'll see that on all my planes, my big planes now, I use capacitors. And I'm going to tell you, I'm knocking on wood, I have not had an issue with retracts since then. So here we are, the two Keecats. I thought that maybe this would answer some questions, hopefully. These are, I tell you what, these are awesome planes to fly. They're not, you know, they're not like the fiberglass, you know, BVMs or anything like that, obviously. But they are fun to fly. You can get into them relatively cheap. I don't advertise for websites or hobby stores, but if you go to General Hobby's website and look at their pusher prop and jets, they have a great selection when they are in stock. And if they're not in stock, hey, email the guy and tell him, hey, get these things in stock, you're looking for them. You'll have a great selection, everything from 46 size to 120 size. Okay, so there they are, my two Keecats, love them. I'll continue to post videos on them as I make changes. 60 power, 1212 props, 80 ESC on one, 100 ESC on the other. Don't know what else I could tell you that would help you, but I'm sure I'm leaving something out. In the meantime, guys, have fun flying. Talk to you later.